So what kinds of questions can you get asked at the exam? Well, NEBOSH use a variety of what we call command words. Now, let's not get too hung up about the command words. I know in the past, with the old exams, people used to harp on and on and on about the command words, probably more than what was really required. NEBOSH try to write clear questions. So most of the time, there are exceptions to this, there are some questions which frankly are a bit unclear, but most of the time the questions are pretty clear and the questions direct you to what they want you to do. And so if we were to take a look at some examples here, we could say, what prompted the local authority inspector to issue the enforcement notice? Right? Pretty clear. It's like, what made them do it? What was the issue? 8 marks, there are 8 possible reasons why, so some comments. We've got, based on the scenario only, what was wrong with the management commitment at the fast food outlet? It's pretty clear, right? And they do try their best to write questions which are difficult to misinterpret, and they do act on learner performance. So if everyone has a car crash for a particular type of question, NEBOSH do look at that and ask themselves, how could we improve that question in the future? So over time, the questions do get clearer and clearer and clearer. Now you'll notice here that we might have a variety of different command words, and so let's look at what these words are. Here we've got a comment word, all right. Here we've got a show how word, another show how, and then we've got a what. And so they'll use a variety of different words. We've got what's, comments, what was wrong. We've got to what extent. So all of these mean different things, and this is actually explained in the NEBOSH guidance. So let's take a look at that. So this is the scenario-based guidance, and it talks about the question types. And what they want to make very, very clear is that most questions will need to draw conclusions from the scenario text using evidence, and so therefore their wording is going to direct you towards that, and they make it clear that they avoid basic retrieval questions. So for example, that one there, based on scenario only, simply just going through the text and copying and pasting bits that were wrong with the commitments, negative comments that were made, that's not going to get any marks. NEBOSH will not give you marks for just taking information out of the scenario, dumping it in your answer. That's just copying and pasting. They're going to want a bit more than that. Now the command words here, we've got command words like comment on, and we've got those in this paper I just showed you, justify, evaluate, to what extent, and so we've got that one again in this particular exam. They imply weighing up evidence from the scenario, and they're designed to reward you for your understanding. It also means that you will not gain many marks by simply referring to notes, right? So just going through your NG1 workbook here, and there's a whole section on leadership, and just copying and pasting what's in the leadership section and putting that on your sheet, that doesn't demonstrate any understanding of how the leadership stuff applies to this scenario. So again, no marks for that. Now, comment type questions, to what extent, implies you're going to make a comment, and that comment means you're going to say what's good and what's bad. So comment on what they did, comment on how well they did something, comment on how good the risk assessment was. If you read your course materials, you'll know what a good risk assessment looks like. If you've studied, you'll know what good looks like. So did they do that? What parts of it did they do which were good? And say that. Well, they identified the hazards really well. They had a walk around. So they identified hazards, they had a bit of a walk around. That was good. What they failed to do, here comes the negative, they failed to check the manufacturer's information. They failed to spot that in the instructions, there were some hazards in there, right? Okay, so there's some good stuff and there's some bad stuff. So you're weighing up the evidence from the scenario and drawing a conclusion as to what that means. Was it good or was it bad? Sorry to interrupt this useful and valuable video. If you're struggling with your National General Certificate, if your course provider is not helpful, if you failed your assessments, NG1, NG2, if your course is expired and you can't get any more help, anything like that, please take a look at our rescue package. The link is in the description below. But if you can prove that you've already studied this course somewhere else, we will give you heavily discounted access to our e-learning course with my tutor support and all of my assistants. Check it out, the link's below. Now we've also got some what questions here. And so we've got the what was wrong with the management commitment at the outlet. Right, so, and then later we've also got like what other health and safety performance indicators could the fast food outlet use? Now, you'd be tempted here to just write a list of indicators. You could say, well, they could monitor accidents and near misses and ill health and sickness absence, and they could do inspections of the floor or housekeeping type inspections. They could do behavioral safety observations and observe people's behavior. That's a list, all right? Notice what it says underneath. It says you should support your answer where applicable using relevant information from the scenario. And the P principle, if we go back to our friendly P principle here, it recommends we use some evidence as well. So use evidence from the scenario to illustrate the things in your list. You could say, well, they're having lots of accidents, therefore they could count those accidents and see if they're going up or down. That would be a way of measuring. And they're probably getting some near misses. So if they introduce some near miss checking, perhaps they could count the near misses and to see if they're going up or down. So you're adding a bit of evidence with a bit of a further explanation off the back of it. So let's take a look at this question up here, which is about the what was wrong with the management commitment at the fast food outlet. It's a big question, it's 17 marks. Now, firstly, as always, I go to the course materials first. I want to see, what does good management commitment look like? What does bad commitment look like? From there, I can go into my scenario and see what's in the scenario. So we go to our course materials here. And interestingly, on this particular topic, we've got a couple of different sections which might apply. We've got a section here which is about leadership in ISO 45001. Might be worth having a look at that. And we've also got a bit here about senior management. And I know there's a whole section in there about promoting standards. So there are two bits in the course materials which might help me understand. Let's look at leadership and worker participation. So this, if I go up a little bit, there it is. So I've got a whole section here about leadership commitment and their responsibilities. All of this stuff here is about the stuff that leaders should do according to ISO 45001. And if we go down a bit more, you'll talk about the commitments there that they should make, and it talks about the consultation as well. All good, useful stuff. And there's also that other section which I showed you as well. So what do? Well, we just go to our scenario, which is all of here, and you read that scenario, highlighting again the bits which are relevant. So you can say, look, they've been absent due to illness at the same time. Okay, so that's relevant. And they've decided to buy cheaper cleaning products. Okay, well, cheaper. You can tell what they're focusing on there, isn't it? They're not interested in the quality of the cleaning, they're interested in the cost of the products. And they did that without speaking to the cleaners. That's another point. It's like, okay, they failed to consult. A good manager consults because they're interested in knowing what works well and how to do the job properly and how to do the job safely, and they failed to consult. They just made a decision. So you're going to write down your list of points, using your course materials, using the evidence, and then for each point you're going to add in evidence from the scenario, and then you should add in an additional explanation, because we're going to provide the so what. So when answering this question of what was wrong with the management commitment, you're going to explain what's wrong with buying cheaper cleaning products. Well, you could argue that the cheaper cleaning products were more slippery, and that's why we've seen an increase in slip accidents. So they prioritized the cost of the products over the potential for increased numbers of slip accidents. And so clearly they're more committed to cost than to health and safety. That's your explanation. And that's going to take you, 3 lines? About 2 to 3 lines. You don't have to write a whole page. 2 to 3 lines is what's needed to nail that answer. So we've got a variety of different questions. We've got the comment questions. If you evaluate to what extent, they require that you weigh up evidence and make a comment on it, and whether it's good or bad or what it means. We've also got the what questions. What are the benefits? What are the reasons? What are the arguments? And some of those you're going to have to provide a lengthy explanation. If the question says, what are the reasons? You can't answer that question with one word. A reason is usually a sentence or two. If the question is, what are the arguments for something? What are the arguments for investigating near misses? You can't answer that question with 1-word answers, like legal requirements. 2 words, legal requirements. No, you're going to have to write a full reason. That's going to require 1 or 2 sentences, 2 to 3 lines. If the question is, what are the indicators? Arguably, you could answer that with short answers, a trend of near misses, a trend of accidents, a trend of sickness absence, scores on housekeeping inspections. All right, those are short answers. But I wouldn't tempt fate, don't tempt fate. Add in some extra explanation at every opportunity along with evidence and references to the scenario to absolutely guarantee that you get the marks on exam day no matter what happens. All right, that'll do. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some quick hints, quick tips, quick things that you should also know when answering your exam questions.